kind of thinking about resourcing and anchoring, if you don't know what your resource or anchor is, I would spend some time to figure that out. I would spend some time practicing coming back to your resource, trying to figure out your resource. This is where you can be polyamorous, to be honest. You can have multiple resources. You can have multiple anchors. And it's not like, oh, this is my resource, I need to stick with it. You can break up with your resource and come back later if it's not working for you. You can have multiple resources that work at different times, or anchors that work at different times or situations. It took me many years to find a resource. I thought I had it, and then something came in. It's like, oh, I used that resource. That didn't work. And it didn't work for that. And so it's sort of like coming back to what works for you, what works for you. And it's different, right? Because we're all different. So what works for me, I'm not going to tell you like, oh, this is what you have to do, right? This is the only way. No, we're all different, right? Some of us are auditory learners. Some of us are visual learners. Some of us are kinesthetic learners. And so there's not one way of learning, just like there's not one way of having a resource. But if you practice over and over again, you'll try out different resources and anchors, and some will stick. Okay. And so that's why we kind of spend so much time on resource and anchors, because it really is important. And it helps with our daily life and our daily activities. Even if we're dealing with things like chronic pain, chronic stress, anxiety, whatever it might be, having a resource or anchors is one of the most important things that you can have. And what that is essentially, where can you direct your attention to? I was messing around with my son the other day, having him change where he's placing his attention. And just that exercise there, right? How many times in school do they actually talk? They say, okay, pay attention to the blackboard. But we're not really bringing the awareness to the fact that they can change their attention so quickly. Right? So we were working on that. Like, okay, pay attention to my hand. Pay attention to your foot. Pay attention to your hand. Pay attention to your belly. And he was just kind of doing this exercise, right? So it was sort of this exercise of attention movement. It's like, oh. He made fun of me and joked about me, like, why are you doing this? And we laughed, and it was fun. I don't push things too much. I just send seeds into the world and see if they sprout, and I come back to them over and over again. So one resource that I feel like can be very powerful for people, especially if they are mentalizers. I'm definitely a mentalizer, and we haven't done this in a while, which is why we're doing it. Is to practice a mantra. It's like, I can't really explain how beneficial it can be. The practice of mantra in my very limited experience is that it's universal. You could see it as a prayer. The rosary is a form of mantra. It's a repetition of a prayer. It's a repetition of a phrase, and and you do it over and over again, right? You're holding the rosary, and you're going through the rosary, and you're repeating the prayer. A mala or prayer beads is a form of mantra. Every prayer bead, you see those people wearing the bracelets or the necklaces with all those beads. Those help in the form of meditation, of directing your attention. I many years ago when I was in medical school and doing my PhD, my practice was almost solely mantra. I had my prayer beads, and my practice was essentially sitting down and doing the repetition of a mantra over and over and over and over again. And the rosary has a specific number of beads on it. The typical prayer beads from like Indian or Buddhist cultures have 108 prayer beads on them, or some form of factor of 108. And what do you do in that practice? Let's say you grab your rosary, or you grab your prayer bead, or you don't need a prayer bead. You don't need prayer beads. What you do is the prayer beads kinesthetically help you, right? Because it's you're feeling the bead, and you say the statement, whatever statement or syllable or sound that you're saying, and then you go on to the next bead. So there's a movement, there's a kinesthetic movement of the hands. There's a thought that's involved, and hopefully there's in a prayer there's an intention. And so you're kind of combining all that, right, with your attention, and you're using your attention to go through, let's say, the rosary, and you're going to complete the whole rosary. You're going to complete the whole prayer bead. And the reason why it's so applicable to mindfulness is because you're directing your attention to one thing, which is the repetition of your prayer, sound, phrase, whatever it might be, a passive disregard for anything else. And if your mind wanders, you just come back to your prayer, your bead, your rosary, whatever it might be. If you've ever done it, you know that you could be in the middle of a prayer bead, and all of a sudden your mind wanders and your thumb doesn't move. You could even be falling asleep, and you're sort of in that same posture, right? And as soon as you notice yourself, your mind has just wandered, and your thumb you haven't gone to the next bead. And then what happens, right? So just think about the practice of mindfulness. What happens is that you recognize, oh, wow, that was a really good lunch I had without having lunch, right? I was already in the middle of my my main course, wherever, right? Wherever your mind goes to. And then you come back, and what's the next thing? You're not coming up with anything. You know exactly what the next thing is, because the next thing is the repetition of the sound, phrase, prayer that you had, and then the next bead. Right. So it's a very, very powerful way of focusing our attention, of taking our attention and going, boom. And where is the attention going to? It's going to the repetition of the sound, phrase, mantra, whatever it is, with the movement of the bead. Next bead, next phrase. 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 Your mind wanders. It's amazing how the mind wanders, and it's not like your thumb keeps going. It's like your mind wanders and your hand stops, because it's connected. Your hand stops. And your mind wanders, and you recognize your mind has wandered, and you come back, and then you feel the beads in your hand. You go, oh, I was practicing my mantra. Okay, let me come back to it then. Next bead, next phrase. Next bead, next phrase. Next bead, next phrase. Okay. So I call this, I've had numerous names for it. I've called it things like psychic protector, for instance, because oftentimes we can get into our mind can really start creating stories can start taking even energies from others. And like my daughter, she's very interested in homeless people, for instance, and I find it fascinating. Ever since she was a young girl, and she directs her attention to homeless people. And what happens when she directs her attention to homeless people? Homeless people direct their attention to her. It's like there's a noticing, and then she gets frightened, scared. Sort of like, oh, And some people have done some pretty, have made some lewd gestures and done some pretty strange things and have scared her, sort of like whatever it might be. But I keep telling her, I'm sort of like, where your attention is going, your energy is flowing towards that, right? Is that where you want your energy to flow towards? And so even if we notice, for instance, that this can help with things like addiction or desires or wants or energies that we might feel like are coming to us, what do? You practice your mantra instantaneously. You feel as if your attention is being drawn towards something, and you're sort of like, ooh, I'm not sure I really like that. But how many times have you felt, and we've all had this experience, how many times have you felt where you notice that your energy is being drawn to something and you feel as if you have no control over this? It's being drawn to something, you're like, oh my goodness, we're going into the depths of this cliff, whatever it might be. Because we don't have a mechanism that has been created yet to shift it. It's so powerful. There's an energy that's so powerful, it might be created by the mind, that you feel as if you're being taken over wherever that energy is going. It's sort of like, and this could be anything. This could be like, I want to eat chocolate right now, right? It's like, I have a chocolate addiction. Okay. And I see a piece of chocolate and I'm like, oh boy, I really want that. But I told myself I'd try to stay off chocolate and I can't do anything about it. Give me that piece of chocolate. Okay. And so you can apply it as you wish, even when you notice your pain increasing. As you start to notice your pain increasing, you apply this mantra, or the repetition of a sound or phrase. I did a lot of chanting when I was younger, and a lot of the chants would be just single syllables. Right? You even think of the word Om, Hail Mary, full of grace, peace, shalom, whatever it is. A single word or phrase or syllable that you can repeat over and 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 over again in very rapid fashion, that as you notice your energy or attention going one place, that you actually you activate this. This is why I call it sort of a psychic shield, because you can activate it and then it brings your attention and energy back. So it's whatever, I've used the word Ram before, so it's just like Ram, 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 Ram. And when you do it, what you notice is your energy starts to kind of expand and contract. And you kind of notice your energy being pulled to something that your energy is going towards, but then you notice it kind of coming back. Okay, that comes with a little bit of practice. But why I think it's such a powerful resource is because when we do disassociate, or when we notice ourselves disassociating, or going into a memory that we're not ready to go there yet to process. Okay. That oftentimes those are kinds of like those energies that can bring us to that. And so, boom, we activate it instantaneously. And we've done it so frequently that it's sort of like, oh, the frequency of the repetition starts to shift. Depending on what you need. How intense of a focus of the energy do you need in yourself? All right. So I hope that makes sense and it's not like completely out there. But this is really, this can be a very, 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 very powerful practice if you implement it. And it can be as basic as saying a prayer over and over again with an intention. It could be a way of saying an intention, love and health, peace and joy, whatever it might be. It could be a syllable. It could be a word, but that's the practice. Okay. And so the practice is finding a word or syllable or phrase or prayer that is authentic to you, that works for you, and try a few. And for this practice, that's your repetition. So that's the single point of focus. It's like you have a laser focus on that. That's it. So it's like, let's say we use the word love. Okay? Love, 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 love. There is no deviation of your attention from that. None. It's so single point. It's like a laser. It's like a laser focus on that. Okay. And then what you may notice is as you're so focused on this specific thing, that the entire universe then opens up. It's sort of like your attention is so crystal clear and focused that then there's this huge expansion to everything. It's like, as you're love, 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 love. Whatever word you use, I don't care. Find one that's authentic to you. Have it be an intention, have it be something that resonates with you. When you say it, say it out loud, say it to yourself, say it quietly. Say it within. Right? Use your sound, use the resonance of the sound. Use the vibration of the actual sound that's coming from your mouth. And see how that resonates. Okay? So that's going to be our practice. Okay, so let's find a comfortable posture. A posture that feels relaxed yet alert. Closing your eyes if you feel comfortable closing your eyes. If not, having a soft downward gaze. And taking 2 or 3 deep breaths and allowing yourself to be here right now to do this practice. Together. And bringing to mind a word, sound, phrase that you can repeat to yourself or out loud, or whatever works best for you. That you can repeat at whatever frequency you need. That helps direct our attention like a laser. For this practice, this is all we are paying attention to, is the repetition of this mantra. Word, sound, phrase, syllable, prayer, and nothing else. That our attention is laser focused on this repetition, and as our mind wanders, we notice our mind has wandered, and we come back to the next repetition. That's it. Laser focus attention on your mantra, the repetition of your word, sound, phrase, prayer, a passive disregard for anything else as your mind wanders, coming back to the next repetition. Nothing else. Notice what happens in the body. And just noticing how the frequency of your repetition changes, if it does. You can also experiment with tying your mantra to your breath. Each in-breath and out-breath. Now taking 2 or 3 deep breaths. Feeling your body breathe, the sensation of your breath coming and going. Noticing your thighs making contact with whatever surface they're on. Opening your eyes if your eyes were closed. Stretching or moving if you need to stretch. Reflecting on this mantra practice today. And just seeing how that was for you.